There's a very uncomfortable truth about money that most people never want to hear. The difference between the rich and the poor is not just the money. It's not just luck, and it's definitely not where you were born. And not as simple as rich people work harder. Because if hard work alone made people rich, there wouldn't be broke construction workers, broke single mothers, broke men working 60 hours a week, and rich guys making money from a laptop in a coffee shop. So clearly something else is going on. And the older I get, the more I realize that wealth is not just about what you earn. It's about how you think, how you move, what you value, what you ignore, and what game you're actually playing. Because poor and rich people often live in the same world, but they are reacting to two completely different realities. One side is trying to survive the next month, the other side is trying to own the next decade. And once you see the differences clearly, you can't unsee them. So in this video, I want to break down 5 biggest differences between the rich and the poor. I'm talking about the real differences, the mental differences, the lifestyle differences, the decision-making differences. And more importantly, which side you need to start moving toward if you actually want to win. So let's get into it. Difference number 1 is poor people think about price, rich people think about value. So this is probably the biggest difference that really changed how I looked at money. Alright, so poor people are forced to think short term, right? So the question becomes, what is cheapest now? But on the other hand, rich people ask a different question. What gives me the best return over time? This, as you can see, is a completely different mindset. A poor person might buy the cheapest shoes, the cheapest pair, even mattress, food, and tools, alright? And I get it, because when money is tight, you don't always have the luxury of optimizing for the long term, right? And I get it, but sometimes you just need to get through the week. I get that. But the brutal truth is that cheap decisions often become more expensive later, alright guys? So I once bought a cheap pair of shoes, and the shoes, they destroyed my body actively. My foot was always hurting and everything, but I saved like $20. Well, this always comes back to you. If you just invest in cheap shoes, and then you wear them for 5 years, compared to if you would have invested like $200 more or $20 more, for a more expensive one, it's just better for your body. And that applies also to like mattresses and your chair where you sit, even the food. There's this thing where most obese people are from the lower society, like, poor people, because they just buy food that's the most cheapest and it's not the healthiest. So rich people understand that value is not about what something costs today, but it's about what it does for their life over the next 1 to 3 or like 10 years, right? So poor people often buy based on relief, right? And rich people buy based on return. And this concept applies to more than the products, all right? It applies to skills. It applies to where you live, your friendships, and what opportunities you say yes to, right? So I started noticing this in my own life when I realized some of the best purchases I ever made, they were really boring. A laptop, not for gaming, but actually for work. Or a better sleep setup, a better mattress, better tools for my editing and what I do in my work, and of course better software that came with it. So these things actually made my actual day-to-day life easier and more productive. But these things, they didn't make me richer, they made me function better. So that's the difference. The difference number 2 is poor people trade time for money. Rich people, they build things that keep paying them. So this is one of the biggest differences in the modern world. If you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you will know that poor people usually live in the middle, when they stop working, money stops too, all right? And they work for money. So that means that no work equals no money. No hours, no income, no energy, there's no progress. This is just how most people are forced to live. We live in a society where they tell you to live like this. But rich people obsess over a different question. How do I do something once and get paid more than once for it? So this is the real wealth, you know? You want assets and you want leverage. Most importantly, in my own life, want like systems. So I design systems for businesses and also for myself, and I want the ownership of it. I don't want to be slaving away my time, because that's the biggest currency that I have. And that's why I'm building these systems, to save me time and ownership to make me more money, right? So example of what I do is, apply these systems in the business or in my content, software, you can apply them everywhere. Even for your investing, if you are in the point of investing, you can invest in real estate, stocks, right? You can build your brand with the systems. And of course, many more things, like digital products. It's a whole system for it. So this is why a guy with 200,000 followers and a digital product can out-earn someone with a prestigious degree working full-time, guys. Imagine you are going 5 years to some college or 4 years, and then just a guy who makes a digital product, and he's like, people called him stupid in his early days. He makes more money than you in a month that you will ever earn in a year. So this is why someone who owns part of something often makes more than someone who is highly skilled but owns nothing. All right. And guys, once I saw this, it clearly completely changed how I think and, change how I thought about work. Because most people are not poor because they are stupid. They are poor because they're trapped in this game, this rat race, where they can only sell pieces of their life, right? They're working on hourly wage, which means you're trading away your life. And this becomes even more exhausting. Like, I know you guys, when you're 20, you just want to get the bag, right? But because life gets more expensive as you go, you get a girlfriend, you get a baby, right? And once you start a family and you're a certain age, your energy goes down. This means that your productivity goes down. And when you work for someone, you don't have a system, you don't have your brand, you don't have no leverage, right? So you're just trapped in this game. So that's why rich people work hard. Maybe sometimes harder than everybody else, which is another point, but they try to work in compounds, right? So 6 months, they are building a system that will outlive them, or 6 months, they are building their brand and they automate their systems, they outsource it, and now they have leverage, If, for example, they are sick, the system still works, all right? So this is why one person is asking for a raise and another person is building something that never has to ask permission for. All right, so moving to difference number 3. Poor people focus on income and rich people focus on ownership. As I said previously, a lot of people think that being rich means having a high salary. Now, this is not necessarily true, in my opinion. You can make a lot of money and still be financially weak if you own nothing, right? As we said already. So that's the biggest trap that most people fall into, So there are people making good money who still live like they're one bad month away from the disaster. And you need to ask yourself why. Because everything they earn is flowing out to rent or their car payments, subscriptions nowadays. You have like 10 subscriptions for everything, like sports, something like that. And their lifestyle, once you earn more money, you will inflate your lifestyle, right? You want to flex more, but you can even build debt. And once you start this cycle of random spending and like building your ego, the foundation is so weak and your ego is so high, so that you think, oh, my income is so big, it looks good, so I'm spending more. But your foundation, your roots are still weak. So rich people, they think differently from this, okay? They start from the roots. They ask, what do I own? Do I own some stocks or perhaps a business? Do I have some high value skills? Or do I own any cash flow? Do I own something in value that doesn't come down? For example, like your car. You invest in it and it just keeps burning away your money. So the exact opposite of the value, you can hold, I don't know, gold, for example, right now. So poor people work for money. Rich people buy things that make money for them, all right? So that's why people can make completely different places 5 years later, all right? So one person buys liabilities to look successful, chains, cars, or just useless things. And the other buys assets to become more successful. All right, this may look boring. It's not sexy. So people naturally don't really like it. They ignore it, Like I want to buy a new car. I want to buy a Mustang. I want to buy BMW. I don't want to buy like a stock, You're not going to flex on the tens with your stock portfolio, right? So that's why owning index fund is boring. Your business is boring. Building a brand, it's boring. But once you learn that the boring stuff makes you money, you'll know that it creates freedom for you. Okay? So that's the one thing I keep noticing. A lot of what actually builds wealth is not impressive in the moment. Everything looks slow. Everything looks small. It looks invisible. Nobody cares. But rich people understand that invisible progress still counts. So you need to track your wins. You need to track everything. And you don't want to appear rich. You want to become rich. All right? That's the big difference. All right. Difference number 4. Poor people consume to escape and rich people use discomfort to grow. So this one is harsh, but it's so real. Most people, when life feels hard, they run towards comfort, all right? So most of you, I hope not, but some of you may have done like scrolling, junk food, alcohol, you went out, just like this dopamine cycle, distraction, anything that numbs you for a few hours. And I was like that, but the thing about that is, like, everybody has their escape mechanism, but poor people, they escape by consumption, all right? And consumption, it creates worse life, which creates even more discomfort if you think about it. And the more discomfort you get when you're poor, you consume more. So this is the cycle that destroys people, all right? Because now, not even you're financially broke, but you're unfocused, you're drained, you're passive, you're just going through life and you're not reacting to things, or you are reacting to discomfort, but in a way that you just consume. You don't do anything about it. So rich people they are not like magically immune to pain or discomfort, right? They respond to it differently. They use discomfort as some feedback mechanism, right? Information for them. Stress tells them something needs to change, all right? If I go out and I don't have really like a success with women, well, instead of consumption and just feeling bad about myself, I will think about what can I change, all right? Should I learn a new skill? Should I perhaps learn to talk with people or learn to dress better, learn to smell better? And once you do this, like you start trying. You may look stupid at first, but once you get going, you start building momentum, right? And this is what separates the poor and rich. Poor people want relief now, but rich people are willing to feel the pain now and access the information for a better life later, all right? And honestly, this might be one of the most important differences on the whole list, in my opinion, because a lot of people stay poor not because they lack opportunity. Believe it, guys, you will see it in I see a lot of people on YouTube commenting, oh, I wish I had your luck and stuff like that. Everybody is lucky, guys. Like, everyone has their own story. But poor people are addicted to comfort, right? They don't seek the opportunity. They don't see it because they are just in this cycle of, oh my God, I need to scroll because it feels good. It feels very great and I don't want to improve. And in the long term, the comfort is expensive, man. It can steal your ambition. It can kill your urgency, right? And your years can actually disappear. Once I understood this, before I understood this concept, 1 year was like another year for me, survival. But the last 6 months where I was actually building something, the time just slowed down, the boredom set in, and I was just working. I started seeing how dangerous it is that when somebody says to you, you just need to chill for a few days. And I mean, balance is important, but just chill, it creates the comfort. But the comfort, it creates a discomfort in the long term, if you understand me. So don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with resting, but there's something wrong with building a life around the escape. And the final difference, number 5, guys. Poor people think survival, rich people think leverage, skills, and positioning. All right, guys, so this is like a summary of all. Poor people often have no choice but to think about survival, right? So they get a paycheck, they think about this month's bills, this week's stress, today's emergency, and the immediate problems. And survival mode, believe it or not, it changes how you think. It makes you more reactive, it shrinks your timeline, it kills your creativity, and it makes a risk feel terrifying, right? And you want the risk in your life. Plus, it makes the long-term thinking almost impossible. Guys, these two things, risk and long-term thinking, this is what separates the rich from the poor, okay? Poor people, they stay stuck in this cycle, okay? Not because they are like incapable or anything, but the survival mode, it keeps them underwater, It's like a nerve, they are nerfed, On the other hand, rich people, they are in a different mindset, okay? They ask, what skill can I learn that changes my life? What room should I be in? Because you're the average of 5 people that you spend the most time with? Or who do I need to become to access a different level? So this is a whole new universe, as you can see. We talk about like how rich people, they think about leverage, how they think about access to opportunities, right? Because rich people, they can, their private jets and stuff, they don't have it like to show off most of the time. They have it because they access the best offers, the best opportunities around the world. Most people, when you are in survival, you stay stuck in one place, right? That kills your access to everything. And rich people, they think about being in the right place when luck shows up. And this is where people get confused because they think rich people are just luckier. Guys, sometimes there are, but a lot of the times they've simply positioned themselves better. That's luck, The harder you work, the more luck you get. And more places you are, the luckier you can be. What I've done in my life is that I learned like a valuable skill, which was video editing and marketing. And I got around sharper people than me, I was in discomfort for half a year around smarter people than me, But eventually I learned a lot of things from them. And now I seek the discomfort. I seek the people who are smarter than me. I took the risk of living in a different city, in the main city, in Prague, because I wanted to meet new people, you know. I'm not from a big city, and this really helped me with my personal growth. From that moment, when I was in the discomfort, I began to build something, not consume anything. Others keep consuming, my friends keep consuming, which is just a shame, but I keep creating because I know it comes to you in the long term. I do stuff with AI, and most reactions that I have is like people say, damn, I'm cooked. I don't have a job or anything. But I say, I always see the biggest opportunity in AI. So we have the same world with the other person, but we have a different positioning, different mindset. The more I focus on leverage, my skills and long-term positioning, the less my life feels random. Not easier, just it's less random. I'm not hoping right now to some things to change. I'm actually becoming someone who can capitalize when something changes, all right? So for example, AI. So that's why rich people do better than poor people. They prepare for opportunities before they arrive. So to sum it all up, what's the real difference between the rich and the poor? I wouldn't say it's just about money. It's how you think about value. It's how you use your time mostly. And whether you own things or just pay for things that you don't really need. And if you seek discomfort or actively running towards comfort. Another thing is whether they live in a survival mode or live in the world where they build their own leverage. I think that everybody has reasonably the same intelligence, but it's about education. And a lot of people are not educated in this subject, but they're not stupid. They're just uneducated. They are ignorant. And later, when they are in this comfort cycle, they become, really, they don't want to learn anything. They are ignorant. That's why a lot of rich people had advantages in the history, and you can see life is unfair. Yes, I mean, that's true. But it's also true that if you start thinking like someone who builds wealth, your life starts to change and you don't actually need to, look at the history and the whole world as unfair. It won't happen overnight, but slowly, and then suddenly something happens because you stop living like a consumer and start moving like an owner. Everything changes then. One thing that I want you guys to take from this video is how do I become free? Ask yourself this question, how do I become free? And write it in the comments. I want you to write it, and I want to read it because a lot of people have different opinions on freedom. Everybody's freedom looks different, and I want you guys to really think about your life and do this exercise. How do I become free? And if you can build your life around this question early, you are already way ahead of most people. Guys, so if this resonated with you, let me know which one of these differences hit you the hardest. And if you're trying to build real leverage in your life, subscribe, because that's what this channel is all about. And I will be posting even more content about what you guys comment. I can answer most of the questions, I think, regarding the digital nomad life, working on your business. And I'm making the videos that I wish I had, I want to be the guy that has a channel where you just need to follow one channel and you will receive all the info that you need to build your wealth. All right, guys, so that's enough for the talking. My throat already hurts from talking. I'm not used to this. I hope you will appreciate me trying to narrate this one, and I'll see you in the next one.